I feel like pure consciousness. It's like I can feel everything and nothing all at once, and the feeling is almost a little overwhelming.
Okay, so you know that at any point it gets too overwhelming, we can ask for it to just be dialed down a little. But I feel like there's a purpose they're showing us that, um, or they're allowing you to feel that right now. Now, as you are there feeling that feeling, do you feel that in your normal day, that connection?
There are times throughout my day, especially recently, where I'm feeling it more often. It kind of depends on the spiritual practices that I'm doing throughout the day, but I have gotten better to be able to connect in with this energy more often.
Is as you're there connected to everything and that energy, are there any messages that Source has for us right now?
I just feel so much love. It feels like I'm holding as much love as my nervous system can handle. And it feels like I'm one with everything. Like there is no disconnect or separation between us. It feels like we're all a part of this greater network, that we're all playing these roles for each other to experience, but we're all actually the same. We're all the same consciousness experiencing itself. And
I
in
think
this place that there's no separation. And when we get past the separation of our ego, the feeling is so overwhelming of unconditional love, of our truest essence, knowing that we're never alone.
are we able to truly live that way here in the 3D realm?
There are some people here that are able to live from this state more so than others. And at higher levels of consciousness, you are able to tap in to unity consciousness more often, or even what you call Christ consciousness more often. But the point of this realm was to experience separation so that you can come back to the whole. So, sorry, it's a lot.
Yeah.
You can feel these states of consciousness here, and coming back to these states of consciousness is the end goal. But the beauty of this life is the separation. The beauty of this life is your ego. It's experiencing your own personality, your own unique experience, so that then you can bring that back to the whole as an even greater experience.
Yeah. So one thing I can share is that I've been working on not judging my feelings because who's our worst critics than ourselves, right? And knowing all the information that we've received in sessions that we've gotten through our own energetic, just all the information. We have a lot of beautiful information. And yet sometimes I still choose to dip into other lower emotions and not judging those emotions. What recommendation Source do you have for us in just allowing those emotions to be?
Emotions are a part of the all. So when you look at emotions from a wholeness point of view, you are that emotion. You are the emotion that you're feeling. And if you're judging the emotion, then you're judging yourself and you're judging an expression of source. All emotions are an expression of source, even anger, even depression. It's all source expressing itself. And when you judge yourself for those things, you're not fully understanding that you're just consciousness having an experience. And so, how can you neutralize your, it's not neutralizing the emotion, it's neutralizing your belief that you have behind that emotion. So instead of judging yourself for feeling anger, neutralize your belief by bringing yourself to the other side of the pendulum swing and saying, how can I be grateful for this anger? Why is this anger triggering me in a way? What can I learn from this anger? And from by looking at your anger in a positive way, you're actually neutralizing your anger, and your anger will just fall away because there's no need for that anger in your body any longer.
Why is saying I'm sorry so important to people when you've done something to them?
It's not so much about the expression of I'm sorry, because it's then that other person has to accept that apology or not. So it's more, it comes back to a judgment of self of if that person is strong enough to forgive. So we say, I'm sorry when we feel bad that we did something. And we can sit down with other people if we truly, from our heart, know that we were wrong and we apologize to them, and that person is open to receive our apology, then that is a mutual, almost like a mutual way to neutralize that situation. But for the most part, especially in our lives now, we say sorry to somebody else to make ourselves feel better because something that we did doesn't sit right in our lower energy centers. So we'll say sorry to someone else out of guilt, out of shame, out of our lower vibrational emotions. And then on the other end, that person is learning how to forgive. It is their own worthiness or their own possible, maybe it's a lesson of gratitude or a different lesson that they're learning in forgiveness of how can they accept that these things happen to them? How can they forgive them and move on? So when we look at lessons of saying sorry and accepting forgiveness, it's usually a contract depending on the event. Sometimes we just throw sorry out there and we don't really mean it. But for the most part, it's contracted for two people to learn two separate lessons.
I understand that. I just think it's an interesting thing we've been programmed to automatically do instead of acknowledging the lesson and the change of action moving forward, which I feel is more beneficial. But I can see how we get stuck in cycles with being taught the I'm sorry. um,
Yeah, absolutely. So that's part of your healing. Part of your healing is learning that your words have conviction. So you're conditioned growing up to just say the words that other people expect you to say. And there comes a point in your healing where you realize that your words are so much more powerful than you've been taught, and you start putting meaning behind the words that you're saying. That's why people that have done more healing work than others, their I'm sorry's have more intention behind them. They're only going to tell you I'm sorry if they truly mean it within their soul. And so that person that's learning forgiveness is more willing to be open to those words. That means a lot more coming from somebody that has done their healing work than your teenage daughter that is angry with you saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it.
right, right. Yeah, I've been there. Um, what is something, okay, so I understand we're all just having an experience and we're all part of source and we're all interconnected. Why source is it so important right now that we get out of these cycles? I mean, if you're here for an experience, us being stuck in the cycles is not so bad because you're just going to continue to get experiences on the same subject. Why is it so important right now that we evolve?
As you break cycles, as you can step back and be the observer, your soul can tap into higher levels of consciousness. And as the soul evolves, as the soul expands, it can have even greater experiences. So, a a newer soul, they are just learning the more basic lessons. They haven't evolved in a way where their soul can expand into greater levels of consciousness. So at the very basic levels, when a soul first takes physicality, they're just learning the basic lessons of treating others the way that you want to be treated, of learning how to step back and be the observer. This is when a lot of karmic cycles come into place where they can learn to step back and be the observer after they've had to experience these lessons over and over and over until their soul begins to evolve. And you can see it as the spiral staircase, and as the spiral staircase expands, it's expanding the cycles as well. I'm trying to explain what they're showing me. It's like the circles as you're climbing the spiral staircase. The staircase is expanding with every cycle that you go through. So you're expanding your consciousness into even greater experiences. And your soul can get to the point where when you're on the other side, you can start to create realities for you to experience yourself. Your soul is truly unlimited, and you can start to, there's so many different things that you can do as source. It's because you are a fraction of source. And so you can start creating the experiences that you want to have. You can start, you could even fractal your own soul, and you can live in parallel realities with your own soul in place. It's hard for the human mind to actually understand how big the human soul is because you are a part of the all. So you can tap into any part of creation that you want.
Now, Ceirra and I were having this conversation last week, I think it was, where about the firmament and everything. And I've asked this before and gotten answers, but I want to ask this now for the Patreon collective and about, are we just a cell? The way our earth is created, way everything's round, just so many similarities if you were to dissect a cell and to dissect our environment and earth. Are we just a cell in the bigger, like, are we a cell in the body of God? Or like, explain this to me a little bit that we can understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are all just a part of the all having an experience. It's the as above, so below. So you are in a container, in a container, in a container, or you could see it as you're a cell within a cell within a cell. As you evolve spiritually, you realize the true impact of the as above, so below. And the as above, so below is a natural state of being because we live in a fractal consciousness. It's not just a fractal universe because this construct is fractal in nature, but consciousness itself is fractal in nature. So you are all just a smaller part of the all having an experience that is expanding into the larger part of the all. So sometimes the Ceirra feels like we're all in a womb inside of a womb inside of a womb, which is where the human being started in the womb. Then we're in a womb under the firmament, and then we're in the container of the construct, and then the construct is within the all, within the void. And so you can see it in these different ways of thinking, however your human mind wants to process it to try and make sense of what is really happening. But there's amount of peace and an amount of awe that you can come to when you realize sources of feeling. Source cannot, your analytical mind cannot make sense of source because it's so expansive. And there's more unconditional love than you could ever imagine within source. So just take a step back in the present moment and feel what you are. Put the analytical mind to the side and feel the potential you have. Feel the expansiveness that lives within your own soul.
It's so beautiful and a great reminder that we can try to understand as much as we can on our journey and use these tools, but we're never going to understand it all. And just to have peace with that and to do our best. And honestly, when I feel connected to the feeling of source, I feel like Buddy the Elf. I feel like I love everything. I'm excited about everything. The world's best cup of coffee. Like I'm cheering you on, even though that your coffee may taste horrible, like I'm your cheerleader. Like I think there's just this beautiful, like when you're in that sweet spot of really connection, life is just roses, and it's a beautiful guide to help us realize where we want to kind of stay in balance. But I think what you've said of if you're in other states, that's okay too, is a beautiful reminder today too, that it's okay if you're not in that state. It's okay if you're having a different experience. So I really appreciate that